And we should be live, everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live On Air, episode 302. Bringing it to you, I would say every Friday, but it's actually we've switched Thursday. Why? Because it is the Easter holidays and it's Good Friday tomorrow. And already we know a bunch of people have taken time away for a long weekend. So we thought it would be better to shift it to today. Probably the last thing a lot of us will be doing today. What a great opportunity to spend the last couple of hours of the working week talking about the things that we care about most, which is, of course, agentic AI in recruiting. Folks, I'm delighted to be chatting with you today on this. Welcome to the show. Just wanted to connect and say hello to everybody here. So firstly, as ever, I have to do sound checks to make sure everything is ticking along all right. For the folks who are watching this on Crowdcast, do let me know whether you can hear and see me okay. Chris, it's always windy in Manchester, but thanks for giving us extra evidence that that's the case. Let me know in the chat, folks, whether the audio and visual is fine. You should be seeing the sepia walls of my mother's kitchen here. We are also breaking records, by the way, on LinkedIn because we are multi-streaming this, I think, on about 10 different sort of LinkedIn channels here. So our friends at VONQ should be sort of streaming this. So if you're watching on VONQ's homepage, say hello. We should also be seeing this from Tico's live stream, from Bill's, Ritu's, all kinds of people there. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn and even on my LinkedIn, drop me a comment. Let me know whether the audio and visual is okay there as well. Let me just see if I can actually see it, to be honest. Yeah, I seem to be live. I think I'm okay. VONQ is live there as well. Fantastic. Okay, folks, let's get on with the show. The more perceptive ones of you, sort of amongst you, will probably be aware that we've kind of been running like a disguised demo series on agentic AI. Start of this year, pretty obvious to me that all of the vendors were going to start busting out with what they were calling agentic AI solutions. And I thought, you know what? This is all well and good, but if they say they've got agentic AI, that's fantastic. Let's just see in sort of in real terms, what does it look like? We don't want to see sort of presentations. We don't want to see stuff like this. We want to see it actually operating. So VONQ have stepped up to do it. I'm excited for this because I really respect the team there. And I think we're going to see some very interesting ways in which this product is now out in production. Let's just kick off immediately. Oh, by the way, I think there's a poll running here. Why don't you just take a moment, by the way, folks, and look on the right-hand side of your screen. There should be a poll sort of icon. Sort of flick that on and do me a favor and put a vote in, please. Let me know how you're all dealing with this. I want to know basically is what are you doing with the agentic AI right now? Okay, I'm going to bring on our first guest. This is, of course, Ritu. Let me just see if I can find her, actually. Here she is. And we're going to get this sort of show kicked off. By the way, folks, if you have any questions for any of the VONQ team, do just pop a question into the Q&A feature, again, on the right-hand side. And make sure you have a chat with us as we go through. Okay, here we are. Ritu's on screen. Wonderful to see you, Ritu. You've got a rather nicer pink shirt than I have. I've realized how faded my shirt really is. I need to bang up my color scheme here. But wonderful to see you, Ritu. For the folks who don't know you, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you and what it is you do? I think you're still on mute, by the way. So I wonder whether you can unmute yourself. Do I need to do that for you? Let me unmute you. Okay. I think, Ritu, you're still muted. Can you hear me okay? I don't think she can hear me. That's rather strange. Okay, let me see if I can try and, let's say, remove and bring Ritu back. Give me a sec, folks. Always little gremlins here. Let's see whether we can do that again. Oh, I see Vanessa here. Vanessa, how are you doing? Great to see you. Yeah, no worries. I'm sorry to miss you as well, Vanessa. I hope it was wonderful for you to be part of the event. By the way, okay, I'm gonna bring you on as like a co-host, Ritu. Hopefully, you can come back and see us. Basically, I hope, and then we should be good. If not, we might just have to bring Bill on straight away and work with it like that. Yeah, cool. Okay, I don't know what's happening here. It seems that I'm struggling to bring Ritu onto screen. Very strange. Okay, no worries. Let's bring Bill on here. We can also move straight to this and swing back to Ritu when we've figured out exactly why this is not working as well. Ritu, by the way, if you can hear me, I wonder whether it might be an idea if you just maybe exit the platform and then just basically come back in on the same link, and then maybe we can crack through on there. Bill, can you hear me okay? I think you can, but you're also muted. Oh, here we go. I think Crowdcast defaults things to mute for some reason. Like, why do you do that, Crowdcast? That's dumb. But I think you can hear me okay. And say something, Bill. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect stuff.
Cool.
Okay, cool. We're going to bring Ritu back. Don't worry, folks. But why don't we introduce Bill to kick off with? Bill Fischer, of course, very famous in the industry already. But for the folks who don't know you, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Cool. Well, it's good to see everyone. It's good to be back on the Brainfood podcast. It is one of my favorites. Um, cool. So I've been in the industry for about I guess about 15 years. So I've been working building the AI ML tooling for HR tech. So I built a semantic search tech company that I sold to Dice some years ago. But I'm at VONQ. I run the product and engineering function at VONQ. I've been there about 5 years, and looking forward to showing you what we've been building.
Yeah, fantastic. And we actually have Ritu back. Fantastic. I think you can hear and see us as well now, Ritu. Is that right?
And apologies. If technology always works for me, then something's wrong. So something always has to go wrong.
Don't worry. This is the beauty of live streaming. This is why it's called Brainfood Live, so that everyone kind of knows in advance that, hey, listen, we're not in control of all of the gears here. Things are gonna go wrong. But Ritu, wonderful to see you. Let's introduce you. I mean, who are you and what it is you do?
Who am I? I'm a mother of two boys. That's the hardest job I do. Every single day I say this. And now I'm at Bong for about 11 months. Feels like the 11 years, but amazing 11 years. And in terms of what I've done and professionally, I've sort of been in the HR tech space for over 2 decades, across regions, across roles, from strategy to P&L and partnership. And at VONQ, particularly since I joined, we're really shaping the future of recruitment marketing and automation with a really strong emphasis on what we'll discuss a lot about agentic AI, data-driven solutions, but still keeping that human very much at the center. I'm deeply, deeply passionate about building inclusive teams. That's what keeps me up at night. How do we do that better?
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And by the way, I didn't realize you're coming up to your first year anniversary. So very well done on all of this. I wonder whether, because VONQ, sort of people who are in the know VONQ, but I wonder whether sort of it would be an idea to just explain real quick, like to the people who are coming new to it. How would you describe VONQ as a business, and how do you think that's shifted over the 12 months that you've been kind of in the wheel, the helm of the ship, so to say?
Great question. So I would describe VONQ as most people know us as either a recruitment marketing solution or a multi-posting solution. And one of the things I discovered, Hung, when I joined VONQ is whichever customer you spoke to, depending on what product they bought us, they only knew us as that. And that's what's evolved over the last 11 months, which I call it every single day has been a bit of a whirlwind, but the best possible way. So when I stepped into the role at VONQ, I immediately discovered that we have an incredibly strong foundation of solid technology, very deep recruitment marketing expertise, and a very clear commitment to helping talent teams be successful. But what we were sort of missing was this confusion about our story. our product, what is our actual focus on our products, and what is the kind of impact we want to have in the evolving world of TA. So that's what's changed. But essentially, people know us as a recruitment marketing solution, a job programmatic solution, or a multi-poster.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. Very good. And you've just had a makeover as well. And I'm referring here to the VONQ. It used to be like this brilliant red. Now it's a beautiful pink as well. Can you talk us a little bit through that sort of color change? What was behind the thinking behind this, and what's the message you want to communicate with the new branding?
Yeah, so it was more than just a branding exercise, Hung. It was also very much about what are we, who are we, and what are we helping impact in the industry of sort of particularly in TA. So if I think about the rebrand, it wasn't just cosmetic. It wasn't just about a color palette or a change in logo or the color pink. Of course, we did embrace the bold pink for sure. But it was a much more a strategic reset in that it came directly from listening to our customers and partners and just the wide market. I often heard, whenever I spoke to someone who knew VONQ, and I often heard this comment, I know some of what VONQ does, but I'm not always sure of everything you do and what you actually stand for. Some people said you've got great tech, but the message is a bit fuzzy. Often heard that in my first few months at VONQ. So we took a step back and asked ourselves, what are we really here to do? What pain points are we solving for our customers? And really, it came down to recruiters today are overwhelmed. There's more noise, more platforms, more fast apply clicks than ever. Hiring has become slower, more expensive, and packed with admin and guesswork. And everyone's down to drowning actually in volume, but struggling with to find quality. That's why the rebrand happened. We needed to show up differently with clearer, bolder, and outcome led messaging. So here's what's changed for us. Of course, the pink, bold pink, which we love, but our vision is now much more direct. So we are here to deliver the best candidates smarter and faster. And our mission really, what we aspire to be, is the global platform of choice for candidate delivery. So it's all our new identity really reflects our role as a recruitment delivery engine. We're all about performance and not just promotion of ads. And it also marks a shift in our own mindset. We don't want to be just another tool recruiters use. We want to be the partner that helps them hire smarter and faster, powered by data and real outcomes. And the best part, of course, is the feedback we've received since the launch from our customers, from our partners, even from industry peers, has been overwhelming but amazing. And that clarity resonates. The promise feels much more tangible. And the pink, as I say, well, let's just say people are talking.
Yeah, and I'm just so pleased it wasn't a corporate blue. Whenever whenever companies say, "Oh, we're going to do a rebrand," I'm thinking, "Oh no, they've just taken them terrible advice and they're going to go some version of the LinkedIn blue." And it's like, as every sort of a company migrates in that direction, I'm thinking, no, we have enough blue brands. So well done on keeping it pink. But yeah, absolutely. I think, again, people in the know VONQ, but it's always been more nebulous than perhaps it should be. So fantastic that we're starting to get some clarity as to what it is. And then people encountering it for the first time can understand, okay, the mission of this company is to help you sort of acquire, get the candidates you want more efficiently and more effectively. So that's fantastic stuff. So great to see that progress in the year that you've been in sort of in situ, Ritu. Let's flick it over to sort of some of the agentic AI piece. I mean, off camera, folks, we were just having a chat with these two here about some of the sort of eat your own dog food type experience, which using the tooling to do a recruitment for VONQ's own team. And it was like, okay, that's super interesting because there's no better way to test how this works other than use it yourself. And yeah, I'd be interested to know sort of what kinds of AI has been deployed so far. What are you thinking? What's the vision on the product side that's going to help recruiters as far as Agentic AI is concerned? So, Bill, maybe you want to take a view on this.
Sure. Sure. No, Hung's point is really well made. So when you build a product, when you ask people to use it, not actually professionally for their job, but just theoretically, they respond to it very differently because you just glossed over lots of details. We prepare these AI dossiers, for candidates, but when all of a sudden you're using the dossier to interview somebody, your eye focuses on different parts. You think about, oh, I wish I had this here. I wish I had that there. Like it's a very different. It's just a very different experience than just kind of reviewing something. Um, it, it's tough to explain. So, but like we actually found, like we brought some of our AI agent products to lots of recruiters to get their feedback, and we got very good feedback from that. But it wasn't until we had hiring managers who were actually using our product to actually hire people that we got really great feedback. So, like just really useful feedback. It's just very different than when people have to use it professionally than theoretically.
Yeah, so there's a gap really, and an inevitable gap, by the way. I think this is true for all products. There's an inevitable gap between the demo and the demo user. And by the way, folks, you're all recruiters there. I'm sure you're trying all kinds of products. You're having this direct experience yourself. Like you're using these products on a demo, and it looks amazing, or it looks terrible, or whatever your experience might be. But it's only when you pipe in real candidates through it that you get the experience. You know how sort of another variable, another human might behave in the flow. Just to explore that a little bit, Bill, what is the separation that you experienced? You had a lot of sort of recruiters on it, and they're kind of on the demo and playing around with it. But what was the difference in terms of when you started getting hiring managers doing it and real candidates coming through flow?
I think it's in a degree of specificity. So a candidate will go through, they'll upload a CV, they'll have a chat with our AI, they'll do an interview with our AI, we'll score their the strength of their application. And when you give it to a recruiter just to go, how does the score seem against a CV? They just go, oh, it looks great. Or yeah, that seems about right. But when you give it to somebody who then has to hand it to a technical recruiter they work with, they go, wait, this person hasn't used Python in the last 5 years. This recruiter only cares about skills that have been used in the last 5 years. So we need that scored out to 0. So you've said this is a very strong candidate. It's not a strong candidate. I can't take it to that manager. And so we just get that feedback repeatedly. So just tiny, tiny little nuanced things like that, where when they actually go, I know the idiosyncrasies of my hiring manager, this isn't conforming to that, or they're going to want to see it this way, or they're going to want to do this. And so that's where it's very different, because we'd go like, yeah, that calibrates well, or that seems good, or but it's not until they're actually thinking about, okay, I now need to present this to the hiring manager. I know. Anyway, it's just very different. It's very different. So it's been, I mean, we've made, I don't know, thousands of changes to the product, but a lot of the really good stuff came once it was live, and we had thousands of interviews, dozens of recruiters and hiring managers using the product actively.
And if I may add something there, and I thought it was fascinating that one of our customers said, recruiter sometimes gets tired and can be rude, but the AI agent is never rude, is always polite. Doesn't matter how the candidate even responds, it continues to remain friendly and kind. And I think that was a really important, that the experience of the candidate was great as a result of that. The other thing I heard, particularly in those situations where speed is really critical for them, that, the AI agent doesn't sleep. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is or where the candidate is met whether he or she is, whether it's through WhatsApp or through a phone agent or through web or through email, and be available for the candidate when the candidate want to have that conversation. I think those are the two things that I took away as, for recruiters particularly, was like, okay, this works for us. And it gets us to a hiring manager with better results faster.
Yeah, I think I think agentic AI is going to nail one of the kind of urban myths in recruiting, that having more human is necessarily better CX. I don't think that's the case. Because let's face it, we've had 100% human-only recruitment flow prior to technology, and guess what? Candidates still hated recruiting. So clearly, 100% human is not adequate. And for the point you mentioned, Ritu, it's because people get tired, they're unavailable. We know that teams are stretched with capacity issues right now, so it's impossible to get back to everyone in a timely manner. But actually, AI can do it not only 24/7, but also in parallel process. It's not going to be exhausted by the fact it's simultaneously speaking to 10 candidates. It can speak to simultaneously 100 candidates. And so that is the real awesome power of all of this. Okay, Nell, thanks for the question. Please, can you copy and paste that into the Q&A? I don't want to be tedious on this, but the reason why I want to suggest this for everybody is so that we can get to them and make sure we don't miss the question, because it might just flow by on the chat. But we'll get to that for sure. Okay, let's talk about the types of sort of AI that you have in there. We have this conversation here about sort of a generalist agentic AI, or is it a domain-specific AI, or whatever it is? What is the philosophy, the build philosophy for you, Bill? How is it? Oh, we've got actually some visuals. You've banged out some visuals, Bill. Brilliant. This is even better than I thought. Okay, talk us through this, man.
Cool. So I think there's a lot of confusion in the market. People also always like to ride the latest trend or have their product associated with the latest trend. And so we do think a lot about what does it mean to have an AI tool versus a truly agentic workflow. And when we think about in 2023, when we were seeing this emergence of large language models and they were finally becoming useful, the first thing we did is we just built tools. So we built a lot of tools. And so I do from the work I did at Dice, where we were building taxonomies and skills ontologies and search tools and matching tools and assessment tools. I thought, what if we could just rebuild all those using a large language model as a foundation, as opposed to the statistical models that we were using and sort of the neural nets that we were building. And so that was the first thing we did, is we just kind of built a full complement of tools. And then we thought, how do we turn these into products, into agentic workflows? And so we did our first agent, I think it was a little more than a year ago. And how an agent is very different is an agent, we give a task, we give them a mission, and then they figure out which of these tools to use. So we give them guardrails, we give them best practices, we give them examples, but then in practice, we have this agent. So an example I'll show in the demo is we have an agent who their job is to look at a job description, look at the candidate, figure out what additional information do they need to see if it's sufficient to send them to the next part of the application process. And so that agent, it has they have an assessment tool they access, they have a parsing tool they access, they have a skills ontology that they access. So it has all of these tools just to kind of, it does a gap analysis, it tries to figure out what's missing. It can then, we built a chat tool, so it can then chat with the candidate to gather that information. So that's kind of the first thing with the agent. And then we thought, can we make agents work together? So we then have an agent that does the intake. We then have an agent that does an interview. We then have an agent that does a group assessment. We then have an agent that does all the comms for it. But they all need to, when one agent gets information on a candidate, they then need to go, okay, I've completed this step. They hand it to another agent, plus all the information they gathered. So anyway, so you just kind of build this process where all the agents are working together. And then they also all speak a common language. So everything can end up being structured data that goes into an ATS. But that's kind of how we think about AI tools versus agents versus agentic workflows.
Yeah, really good. Folks, did you understand all of this? I mean, we're getting into sort of some technical speak here, but I thought the key concepts, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong here, key concepts are there needs to be like a standardization of the data that the kind of agents consume, so they're not just released into the wild, so to say. It's not like an agent taking over your browser, going all over the internet and trying to do all those things. Those agents don't tend to, they're not able to complete complex flows. I think that's the feedback we've seen from people using agents of that type. They hit a roadblock and they come back with stuff that's not sort of right, and they still hallucinate. So you can't fully trust it to do what they want. What VONQ seems to have done is basically put the agent purely in platform, right? So the agent doesn't exist outside of the VONQ universe, but you've created a bunch of tools that the agent can pick up and interface with, and so the entities are tools, agent, platform, and those three things basically interact all together, and it's in a much more controlled environment. And my understanding of this is called a domain-specific agent. So it's they inhabit this thing. They're there to help you to recruit. They're not there to help you book a holiday. They're not there to help you, sort out your keto plan or anything like this. It's domain-specific for this task, and that's why it's starting to produce outcomes, which is what we want in terms of efficiency. I hope that's like me not mansplaining your better explanation, Bill. I hope that's okay as a dumbed-down version of it.
No, it's spot on. It's spot on. So it's so again, agents, you have to have an orchestrator. So an agent does a task and then tells the orchestrator, I finished my task. And then they package up the information from that task. They hand it to the next agent who just picks up. But as you can imagine, so like we had to build our own parser to do this. So because we needed a parser that could understand a WhatsApp conversation, an email conversation, a CV, a job description, an assessment, and when it talks about skills, every agent uses the same terminology. And so when they do the work they're doing, and then you then need to output that into an ATS or into a CRM, everything goes in the same structured information. Otherwise they would just be speaking past each other and they wouldn't be building upon what they're doing.
Yeah, very, very good. I'm really drawn to this chart here, Bill. I wonder whether you could handle us through this. So what's the 1, 2, 3, 4 here?
Cool. I mean, this is a blend of kind of marketing messaging and then some of the products. So I'll talk through a lot of this through the demo. So I talked about CV parsing. I talked about matching. So again, for matching, I've built a lot of kind of matching systems. I built a semantic search tech thing, but the vector search, which is kind of it's a very different approach to comparing two documents and seeing how similar they are. So typically in recruitment, what has been keywords. So it'll go like, the job description has these keywords, the CV has these keywords. Is there an overlap? Does the CV have some of the keywords that the job description has? But with vector search, so one, it looks at all of the different words in context. So it understands all those keywords much better. And then it also can just pick up, similarity, even if the keywords are totally different. So if somebody talks about work they're doing, but they don't use any of the keywords, it still understands that they're using that skill, and then they can match that against the other document. So it's just a very different approach to how you do that matching. That was really important for us because a lot of these things I wanted to build forever. The tech was just never good enough, and it's quite good now. It's quite good now.
Yeah. So basically, AI. Go ahead, Ritu. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Hung. Please go ahead.
No. I was going to say. So essentially, the Gen AI has busted open the opportunity really on this, isn't it? Because without that being mainstreamed, was it end of 2022, I believe, was when ChatGPT was released. It's incredible to think it's now like nearly 3 years or so that it's been out in the wild, but it completely changed sort of the opportunity for product builders. And as you say, Bill, it's created these opportunities to massively improve the accuracy of things like matching. So yeah, very interesting. Go ahead, Ritu. You're probably going to make a more intelligent point than I did just then. So.
Never. I could never do that in front of two seasoned colleagues here. But the point I was making on this chart is essentially 4 things. If you think about candidates, they want instant feedback. They want to know if they are wasting their time or do they have a really good chance? And that's the first message we're giving, is we're telling a candidate very quickly through one of the agentic AI conversations or a pre-screening that you're in the 10th percentile. The second is about drop-offs. We're already seeing, I don't know if you've seen the Stanford study that just came out, that candidates going through AI-led interviews have a 53% success rate in follow-up. So they don't drop out quickly. So that's the second message from this slide, is that we want to make sure that we have a better experience and candidates stay with it. Third, Bill's covered in depth around CV parsing, but you'll see that when the demo comes to life. And finally, we want to get to a point where we're not replacing recruiters, but we're empowering them with the shortlist. How quickly can we get that shortlist to a recruiter or to the hiring manager so they know exactly through the ranking and the scoring, okay, we should focus first on these top 10. And I think that's the message from the slide in terms of what the 4 things we want to try and achieve.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Okay, cool. Let's get cracking through, Bill. Oh, we've got regulation slide here. Bill, you're on mute, man.
I am indeed. Yeah, so there are a couple questions that people always have when we do these demos, and they spend their whole time trying to remember the question and not focusing on the demo. So I'll just knock a few of these now, and then we'll go right into a demo because nobody likes watching slides. So one thing, we got really lucky in that we built this suite of tools after the EU AI Act, the framework was in place. So we built it from the ground up to be compliant with that EU AI Act. Specifically in recruitment, if you have an AI doing assessment, the assessment needs to be transparent and explainable. And so you'll see when I do the demo that when the AI gives a score to a candidate, you can see exactly why it is that candidate got that score. So it's not a black box algorithm. It's not a black box kind of match like other systems, where you might give it some examples of, this is a strong candidate, this is a weak candidate, and it'll look at the CV and just go, this seems like a strong or a weak candidate. You can actually see how the scores get built up. So that's the EU AI Act bit. As Ritu mentioned, these are recruiter enablement tools. And so everything is human in the loop. So a recruiter can fine tune any of the modules that I show you today to meet their specific whims. They can also intervene at any step in the process. As much as I'd like to just build I shouldn't say that. So I'm hiring now, and I've got 500 candidates. Not all of them are suitable for the role. It'd be really nice if the AI just took care of that. You just let people know gently, that this isn't the right opportunity for them, or give them other opportunities. But I need to manually intervene just to press the button that just sends the notification out that this isn't a great fit. I talked a little bit, maybe too much, about CV parsing and matching, so I'll skip through that. Ritu touched on the instant applications. And we also have scheduling tools. Like we just keep building more and more tools just to make the life of a recruiter simpler. An even fun thing we do is kind of assessment days, where we have business rules built into the system. So if a candidate hits a certain threshold score, they're immediately invited to an assessment day, and they can just take care of that in that process. CPA Plus, something coming up new. So I'll touch on this later, and I'll get right into the demo.
Cool, fantastic stuff, folks. Any questions? Ping them in the question sort of feature. I know about 10 of you have already put questions in there already. By the way, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you can also ask questions in comments. We've got a team basically looking at all of these LinkedIn live streams, and we're going to populate your questions into the question bar into Crowdcast as well. So we're going to have all of those answered. So don't hesitate to ask questions in LinkedIn on the comments as well. Okay, Bill, what are we looking at here, man?
Cool. So you're looking at a brand new candidate journey. So something that's been really frustrating for us at VONQ is that we work really hard to deliver candidates to companies, but once the candidate has to apply, lots of them drop out of the process. So one, they often just have to, we see with some ATSs that we work with, not our great partners, but some of the others, up to 90, 92, 94% of the candidates don't complete the application process. So like they just go, and all of a sudden they go, oh shit, I'm just gonna be one of 1,000 candidates. do I really want to retype my CV into the forms on this ATS? Only to be ghosted later, because they're often ghosted. And so we built a system where we have an AI agent that kind of works with the candidate and provides feedback as they go. It can answer questions as you go. And it's just a very different approach. And we're seeing a much higher completion rate on the application. So what you're seeing here is kind of a landing page for the job of a
Bill,
absorber.
just a quick interruption. Just a quick interruption again for the folks who might not be too familiar with it. VONQ is not deploying like an ATS solution. It's candidate acquisition at the beginning. It's going to help a recruitment business that already has core ATS to basically put more relevant people into the ATS. So you're basically going to integrate with a number of ATS partners. And what we're looking at here is a method of improving the conversion rate after that company's acquired the candidate. Is that correct?
It is, and you saved me from getting in trouble with my team for not touching on that. So yes, this is we do top of the funnel talent acquisition is what we do at VONQ. And so we are seeing though that for lots of our clients, they spend for every euro they spend with us, like bringing candidates to their jobs. They spend about 2 years doing that initial processing and intake of them, and so that's where we're building. Yeah, that's where this new suite of tools is. But then also we thought if we could fix the candidate journey, it generates a much better ROI for our customers. If all of a sudden if they're capturing 80% more candidates, that anyway, it's easy to understand how that's powerful. So I'm going to upload a CV. We do have a flow where you don't need a CV. So a surprisingly number of high volume roles, like the candidates don't have CVs. So in that instance, when I talked about the AI agent before, where they kind of try to figure out what's missing, they just have a longer conversation with the candidate, and then they just build a CV from that conversation. But I'll show a flow with a CV. So I'm going to upload a CV. 1 second. While I do this. Cool. So I've uploaded my CV. This is where the AI agent has now picked up the process. It wants to double check my phone number, just in case life intervenes and they drop out, we can reach them. So it's done that. Cool. And so based upon the intake, it's decided I'm a strong enough candidate to go to the next stage, which is a chat. So we don't have enough information for this role to give somebody where they sit in the pool. So that's one of these things. How LinkedIn does you'd be one of the top 23% of applications for this if you were to apply. So they kind of encourages people. We do the same sort of encouragement, but in this instance, we don't have enough applicants for it. But I'm going to start this chat. So it's asking me if I have a driver's license because I've applied for the role of a truck driver who also has to move washing machines, and I will just say yes, just for speed. But we haven't told the AI what questions to ask, so it's been given the mission, and then it's just on a mission. So it's just going to work through and just try to complete it. So they want to know if I speak Dutch. Again, it's very different than conversational AI, where you kind of have to write out these scripts and then lots of variations of the scripts. Cool. So from that, it decided it doesn't need to gather that much more information, but because I don't seem to be that strong of a candidate, but it is going to let me interview just to see if it can learn more about me, just to see if we could redeem my application. So, and this is where it gets passed over to...
So the candidate gets the score, right? The candidate sees this was 80% or something. That is exposed to the candidate.
Yeah, so they are seeing where they sit in the pool. It's a smaller pool, so we don't have a lot of granularity on it. But you can also just see based upon that intake, their CV and a specific job description. It's providing some feedback to them. So this kind of lets them know, do you have a chance? Do you not have a chance? Before the interview, or are there some points you want to make sure you make, just so you might be able to boost where you're at? But at this point, we send it to an AI agent. The AI agent looks at that intake, they look at the job description, they look at the CV, they come up with their own interview plan, they conduct the interview, they build their own assessment criteria for each of the components of the interview, they score the interview, and then they hand that to the next agent. But I'll just do a quick interview here.
Hello, Bill Fischer. This is Jenny from Coolblue. Am I catching you at a good time?
Yes, although I am in the middle of a
Great.
podcast.
Oh, joining a call during a podcast? That's definitely multitasking at its finest. Imagine the podcast listeners getting a sneak peek behind the scenes. Anyway, the reason I'm calling is that you've recently applied for a job at Coolblue, and this is your first interview. I'm an AI interviewer, and this is part of your application process. If you consent to this interview, please say, "I consent."
I consent.
Great. Thank you for consenting. Let's start with a few questions about your application. Could you tell me why you're interested in the Besorger Ribovize B position at Coolblue?
Yes, I'd like to have a job where at the end of the day, I just go home and I don't think about work.
That sounds like a healthy work-life balance. Coolblue definitely values its employees' well-being. This role involves delivering products to our customers, ensuring they receive their purchases on time and in great condition. How do you feel about interacting with customers and being the face of Coolblue during deliveries?
I really enjoy working with customers. So it's great bringing a smile to people's faces.
Absolutely. Bringing a smile to someone's face is incredibly rewarding. At Coolblue, we believe in making every delivery a positive experience. What do you think is the most important quality for a delivery driver to have when interacting with customers?
Listen. They need to listen to the concerns of the customer so that they can deliver a great experience.
That's a great point. Listening to customers ensures we understand their needs and can provide the best service possible. It's all about creating a positive, memorable experience for the customer. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Now, can you tell me about a time when you went above and beyond to help a customer in a previous role?
Sure. So I was moving it was a house moving thing, and they hadn't bothered to package up the goods before I arrived. So I actually helped them put the goods in the boxes before we did the move.
That's a fantastic example of going the extra mile. Your willingness to help out and ensure everything went smoothly must have made a big difference for those customers. Being adaptable and supportive in unexpected situations is a valuable trait. Thanks for sharing that story. Now, let's move on to the next question. How do you handle situations when a delivery doesn't go as planned, such as delays or issues with the product?
I just provide transparency. So lots of notice to the person who's waiting to receive the goods.
Transparency is key to maintaining trust and ensuring customer satisfaction. Keeping customers informed about any delays or changes helps them feel valued and respected. It sounds like you have a great approach to handling such situations. Thanks for sharing your insights. That wraps up our interview for now. Do you have any questions about the Besorger Ribovize B role or about Coolblue?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Thank you for your time and for sharing your experiences. We'll be in touch soon about the next steps in the application process. Have a great day.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care and have a wonderful day.
Okay, before anybody says another word, how did Bill do in the interview? Has he got the job, folks? Yes, no. I think he didn't close it. I think he was pretty good. Maybe I'd give him a shot, but let me know, folks. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it. And people are actually popping in with some really great feedback on this. Bunch of questions coming through. I want to address the background noise. Some people said, was that a kind of engineered to sound like it was actually a person from in a busy office, or was that someone's background noise that was your background noise, Bill? How was that working?
It's engineered. So one of the things it does is it helps provide some white noise, which when people do it's really difficult to know when somebody's finished speaking, and some people have really long pauses. People are also in noisy environments, so it does a little of that, and then it also just makes it seem more real. So when you just have these crystalline calls, there's something that's a little not comfortable about it. So we've worked really hard. Yeah, so like there are little details like that. The big thing for us though was voices that seem natural, voices that do accents very well, and then latency. So so we've done a lot of engineering work just so there aren't awkward pauses. That makes sense.
Yeah, really good.
Someone asked a
Ritu,
very
go ahead.
interesting question, Hung, about will the interaction continue post this voice chat or interview? Yes, absolutely. And let me give you an example just very quickly. One of our customers who was doing the proof of concept with us realized that they'd forgotten one key information in the job description, and said, "Oh, we want to add French as a language that the candidates need to speak." We could simply add that back to one of the vectors in terms of requirements, and it would reevaluate all the candidates whether they have French as a speaking language, either through the CV or the chat, or if not, could initiate another chat simply with that question, "Do you speak French?" So the conversation continues, and it is very, very dynamic based on how you feed the job description.
Yeah, very good. Bill, you're whizzing around sort of the screen there. Is it? What are you doing right now?
So this is another agent. It's another agent. So I was just loading it up just so we wouldn't have. I wouldn't have to just sit here and tap dance while I was loading it up. So it's all loaded up.
I thought you were rigging your application so you'd progress to the next stage, Bill.
He's not allowed to leave, so no, he cannot.
So again, like a fun thing. So my background is obviously very different than the background for this job, but it was able to determine, times I have done customer support work, in other roles, things I've had to do with problem solving, willingness to work. Anyway, so it does a lot of those things. So it still gives me a chance. And this is one of the reasons why we went to a scoring system versus a matching system, is that a bartender could be a really good fit for a customer support role, but it's not a natural match. It's not a natural match. But that's how we use AI very differently to kind of break apart the job description, break it into vectors we want to evaluate, take the person's application, break that into the same vectors, and then evaluate each of those vectors. So it's a very different approach to matching, which I talked about before. But so this is the group assessment agent, and what their mission is. You have a pool of candidates. So I've got an open role now. I've got 500 candidates. What it does is it looks at the job description. It thinks, okay, what are the 15 vectors I want to evaluate each of these candidates, and what assessment criteria do I want to apply to each of those 15 vectors, and what weight do I want to apply to each of those vectors? Because not all of them are equally important. So if a job description says this is a must-have, it'll overweight that. If a job description says this is a nice to have, or then it'll reduce that weighting. So it really helps produce nuanced scores. And so you can see, I mentioned, actually, I'll just do this. So you can see across the top there that's moving. So those are the vectors it's evaluating. You can see the assessment it's using for it. But then if you go to any of the squares, those boxes, you can see how I scored for that one particular vector. And it's looking at the interview, it's looking at the knockout questions, it's looking at my CV, and then it explains in plain English why I got that score. So, but it does that. Like a fun thing I spotted this morning is that if somebody says "yep" to a driver's license, they get a slightly lower score than if they say "yes," because it just goes like, I have a little less certainty that this person actually has a driver's license. So if they have driver's license in their CV, that's the best. But we also have a way for them to upload a document, so you can then do a document check, and that's how you would get a top score for it. But it just kind of does this very nuanced interrogation of those 15 vectors for all the candidates, and then it builds a dossier. And so this is what a hiring manager gets. So if you have a pool of 500 candidates, they'll get these 500 dossiers. You'll see we have all the kind of the important stuff at the top, but we do whether or not they're recommended, or whether or not they need more. You need to look further into them, or if they're not recommended. You'll see that my score, we do it on a 250 point basis. It took us a while to land on 250 points. There's a lot of reason for it, but I won't go into that today, but you can just see that, the screening summary, some of the key strengths, some of the areas you would like to investigate further. I know when I do in-person interviews after I get the dossier, these are kind of good areas for me to just dig into a little more. But you can see more of the scores on the dossier. You can read the knockout transcript. You can read the interview transcript. I find these transcripts super useful. We hire globally, and there are lots of times where a candidate has been to a university I'm not familiar with, has worked for companies I'm not familiar with, worked in an industry I'm not familiar with, but it just kind of really helps me kind of level set their conversational skills, their cognitive abilities, how they think, how they process, even some attitudinal things. But that's kind of it. So the interview I showed was a very simple interview. So we're working with a company that's hiring software engineers in India. They're getting way too many applications. And every time we send them dossiers, they just go, we're getting too many, and we need more nuance. And so we keep making those interviews more technical and longer and more difficult. So one, just to reduce the number of applicants, but also so we can provide even more nuance in the assessment that the AI does. And that's kind of this isn't all of our VONQ AI products, but these are the ones that I thought would be interesting for the group to see. And we're using it with a German bank now. We're using it with a Adecco, kind of a global staffing firm. So we're using for roles for them, or we're using it with Software One. I can go to some slides. I'll let Ritu talk a little bit about customers, but these are in deployment, tens of thousands of conversations with candidates. But I will let Ritu give the punchline on the
Yeah, the punchline is on the slide, Dale. So if you go to the slide, Software One, the global head of TA, when he deployed VONQ's AI agents, he made it very clear to his recruiters, we aren't replacing recruiters, we're empowering you. Simply, the challenge was we're tackling volume at scale here. And it's such a classic challenge that everyone's facing: too many applications, not enough time. For one single software engineering role in India, the recruiters were drowning in unqualified CVs. So we deployed our AI candidate journey, our AI assessments, AI interview tools, and let the agents take over the front end of the process, the top of the funnel. And what we saw very quickly, within a few weeks, 400 plus candidates screened, saving time, the team's time around almost 260, if I remember correctly, of hours of manual effort. And I think for an organization like Software One, which operates in 90 countries and serves 65,000 customers, scale and speed are non-negotiable for them. And then that's what we managed to achieve with Software One. If you go to the next one, Bill, in terms of what Adecco had to say, it was really from applied to vetted in 2 hours. If you think about staffing, staffing world, it's all about speed. They're handling massive volumes, and they needed a way to dramatically shrink the time from application to vetting without compromising on quality. And they were responding to their customers. How quickly can we give you a shortlist? So we rolled out the AI agents for multi-channel engagement, nurturing and screening, and the results were pretty remarkable. They not only made their hire, the first hire through the Agentic AI, so VONQ's age, but they reduced recruiter processing time from 3 weeks to just 2 hours. AI agents engage with over 600 plus candidates across multiple channels. And when I say multiple channels, it's email, web, voice, WhatsApp, depending on where the candidate wanted to have interact with the AI agent. We saved over 78 recruiter hours per role, and across roles that added up really quickly. So they made their first hire. They've already got 6 or 7 in the pipeline to hire. And all this is through the shortlist and vetting that our AI agents did. And the outcome that goes beyond the incremental game, it was transformational. So we're now looking at many other roles and many other customers of Adecco Belgium, where we're going to deploy the Agentic AI. And the last one, Bill spoke briefly about the German bank. It was literally the hardest to fill role. Let's try. It's always the way. If you're doing a proof of concept, you get the hardest task to do. And we didn't succeed with the hire, but we at least did not let their recruiters waste hundreds of hours with irrelevant candidates. Our AI agents could just vet them and pre-screen them and let them know, actually, you You save your hundreds of candidates were engaged and screened, but no one actually fit the brief, and that was a win because the recruiters didn't waste their time.
Yeah, fantastic. Really great that you've got some big companies using it. And this is not just like big company, failure, so to say, but it just means that there's lots more data being pushed through the system. And it means that the product makers will have a lot more data to work with to understand actually how to evolve the product going forward. So fantastic stuff. What do you think, folks? Let us know in the comments. Are you impressed by this tool? Do you think this type of stuff can help you sort of in your hiring flow? What do you reckon? Oh, there's actually an offer. Good Lord, what have we got here? I actually didn't know anything about this, but tell us about it. I love either free or cheap stuff. So Ritu, what is on offer here?
You know what? I'm ashamed to say I actually don't know. Bill, do you know? Let's read this.
No idea.
It unlocks.
Don't read it.
Yeah.
It says it.
Yeah, it
I hope
unlocks.
it's generous, but not too generous.
It's a media discount. In addition to that, 3 months free for our job marketing platform. Where you subscribe to our platform with data-driven advertising. We've also introduced our AI recommender within that, so it helps you sort of choose the right channels depending on the job you're trying to post. So use the QR code and find out more, but reach out if you have questions or any feedback for us.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Let's keep that slide up there while we dive into some of these questions, folks, because people might want to take shots of this. Get your phone out and get registering on this. Like, as I say, anything that tells me that you get 3 months free or whatever it is, I'm all over it. Okay, fantastic stuff. Let's go to these questions. Some of them are really interesting. Valeria has asked a very pertinent question. Do your AI agents make any decisions with regards to which candidates progress further without the human recruiter being involved? And if yes, how does that fit into the laws protecting against automatic AI decision making in hiring? Answer to that, pretty straightforward question.
Yeah, I mean, well, our agents are instructed to give every candidate a chance and to give them every opportunity to make themselves a viable candidate. So we do have that assessment at the end, but it's up to the human to evaluate the assessment and then decide whether or not they want to take it forward. But the agents aren't, like they're not dropping candidates. They're not dropping candidates.
Yeah, so they're not deciding, they're putting kind of a recommendation, and that's different from saying yes, no. And I think you can argue that's nuanced, but that I think is pretty fair. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any kind of no one would be able to make any decision whatsoever. Okay, great. I want to try and go through all of these guys. Hope that's okay. Might take us a little bit over time, but let's try as best we can. Rebecca's asking, okay, as CV parsing and precision matching is ranking the candidates, is that allowed according to the EU AI Act and some US laws? Like, can you even rank candidates? Do you know anything about the legal side of it? What's your interpretation?
Our interpretation is yes. As a recruiter enablement tool, you can use parsing, you can use matching, you can use assessments, but you have to be able to explain, in clear, transparent, natural language, how it's doing the matching, how it's doing the assessment. That's a really great thing about large language models is like, even if it produces a result, you're not sure why it produced a result, you can even just ask it. It'll tell you, but it's very different than other black box algos where they just go, this is an A candidate, this is a B candidate, this is a C candidate, and you have no idea. You have no idea why that candidate ended up in that bucket versus the other bucket. And so we've just built a very different, again, it's not matching, it's points. And the points are like, they're kind of, and then we provide we provide the documents to support the points in the assessment. So it's not just, this is why, but also like, here's the quote, where they said it, or this is the line in the document. So it's a very different approach.
Transparency and explainability is the main kind of thing that we're trying for here. Okay, let's go. A lot of these similar questions, so I might have to skip a few, but let's just shoot for this one from Jen. In this process, then, does the recruiter not speak to the candidate at all? It goes from applicant to AI agents to hiring managers. So the role of the recruiter becomes manager of the technology and the relationships in the business. So yeah, pretty straightforward. It looks like it takes away the pre-screening call, I guess. I can imagine the circumstances where it does go straight to a hiring manager, or there's certain circumstances where it might actually go to a recruiter. So it seems to me that that's contextual. I have now answered that question, even though I've got no evidence on it. Bill and Ritu, can you validate what I said or refute it?
No, it's 100% right. So it's enablement. It's not making those decisions. But again, think about that experience. So the candidate, within 20 minutes, they've had feedback, they've had a chat, they've had an interview. So like their life, like they started the process. 20 minutes later, they're done. The recruiter, they placed a role with VONQ. A candidate shows up. 20 minutes later, they've got a dossier on their desk. That they can then decide to bring them in for a second interview or to pass them on to a hiring manager. So it's just but yes, it's typically companies still want to talk.
Absolutely.
Talk to a candidate.
And it's very nuanced to the role. In certain roles, you don't require so many conversations. You just have to tick certain boxes, particularly if you think about volume hiring versus others. It's very nuanced where you do need to go through 3 stages of interviews, whether it's one with the recruiter, the hiring manager, the team. Those will still happen. It just enables a recruiter to get there faster. And I also believe it creates a level playing field. Every candidate is assessed exactly the same way, with the exact same vectors across, and with no human bias there. So for me, that is a really important outcome that we're trying to drive.
Yeah, and I think the future role of the recruiter will be to determine where the human does intercede in that flow. I mean, we can imagine maybe the driver role that sort of Bill sort of interviewed for doesn't have to be like loads of a battery of interviews for that to happen. But if it's a job that Bill's doing, CTO position, of course, there's going to be heavy human involvement in that. So that's going to be nuanced there. Javid, I think we might have answered sort of your question in passing, so I'm going to skip if you don't mind. We've got this question here from Keith Langbo over at on LinkedIn. He said, look, does the AI rank candidates on cultural alignment in addition to skills assessment stroke ranking? Interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. You guys, what do you think?
No, we don't. No, we've stayed away from that. So it's an opportunity to introduce bias into a system where we don't want to have it. So the recruiter, they can read the interview transcript, they can read the chat, so they can do some sort of cultural assessment from that. But we don't, that's not what this is built for. It's not built for that.
Fair, absolutely fair. Okay, Andrew's asked a question here again on LinkedIn. Can you comment how features that insulate employers from bad cyber actors, i.e. fake profiles, malicious intent, those who use agents to respond to VONQ agents? Basically, what are you doing if a sort of a candidate has deployed some automation into the flow? You've actually, maybe it's not you talking, Bill, it's actually sort of an AI agent the candidate's deployed. Can VONQ detect it? Have you got a mitigation strategy?
Ritu, do you want to talk about prompt injection and how we block that?
I will leave that with you.
No, I'm teasing. So so we do have a lot of there are a lot of third-party tools that have emerged just to block some of the bad actors. So prompt injection is one of those. The AI agents are forced to stay on task. So if they're asked to do things outside of their task, they'll politely decline to do that. We're now looking at overfit for applications. So if a CV is too strong a fit for a job description, we will flag that. So we're doing more things just to deal with kind of the lazy apply, the AI apply, but partly like one of the reasons companies like working with us is that in an era of one-click apply and lazy apply and AI apply, when somebody applies through VONQ, they still have to chat with somebody, they have to do the interviews, so they have to affirmatively assert that they know what the role is, and they have to invest a little time. So it's not just a matter of seeing something go, YOLO, press the button and apply. So they're engaged.
Yeah, really good answer. And by the way, this is just going to be an ongoing arms race. I think this is going to just be a product competition with both sides. That's just going to be inevitable. Now, I think we've answered that question in passing as well. There's a question from Kip Kelly. I don't quite know the sort of what the context is, but maybe you do, Bill. How will Google's new A to A protocol impact the work? Does that make any sense to you, Bill, or not?
It does. It does. So I'm trying to think of a good way to think about this. So people talk sometimes about Gen X people being stronger at tech than people that grew up when the tech was fully developed. And so at VONQ, because we were so early to building on top of these tools, we had to build our own. Like agent architecture, yeah, and our own orchestrators and our own agentic workflows and kind of the tools to do that. So something like Google's A2A is just a protocol that makes it much easier now for other companies to build agents and to have those agents work together. Another fun thing about the Google A2A is it's not just for your own internal agents, but it also makes it easier for agents to communicate with third-party agents. So if you were trying to book a hotel, you could use one AI agent to try to discover another, and then a third-party AI agent could actually do the booking and reservation, and then another AI agent could do the payment processing or something. So it's just a protocol that makes it easier for agents to work together.
Future is unfolding right in front of our eyes, folks. Okay, here's another one very interesting from Ronan. Are there any reliable agents that can assess non-verbal cues like body language? I guess not until you have an embodied AI, right? I mean, unless you've switched the guy's camera on, sort of, which sounds a little bit intrusive. I don't see how. Actually, no, if it's a Zoom call, maybe you could. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Are we into areas we want to be in, or what? How are we feeling?
Yeah, so AI, large language models are happy to help. And so if you ask a large language model, if you give it this transcript and you say, does this person seem friendly or not friendly? It'll offer an opinion and it'll likely be right. We don't have that as part of our assessment. But there are some tools where it'll score the language capability. It can score enthusiasm. It can score on empathy. So it can do a lot of that, but we don't do it. So with video stuff, there are a lot of tools that will look at, does the person make eye contact? Are they fidgety? Are they twitchy? Are they also enthusiastic? But we haven't introduced those as part of our assessment.
Yeah, fantastic. Folks, we're going to keep on rolling. I hope everyone's got time to do it. This seems seemingly worthwhile, and we're getting through the questions, but this keep piling in. I want to put a hard stop maybe in another 5 minutes, but I think this is worth us continuing. Okay, this is a really good question from Javid. Javid said, look, the AI agent actually sounded really nice. But what if you had a bad candidate, like a really bad candidate, but the AI was defaulting to be nice? Is there a risk that you create like a false positive in the sense that the candidate might walk away thinking they did really well, but actually it was a very poor performance? But because the default niceness of the agent, you might have created this misconception. Any ways in which is that a valid criticism? Like how does the AI deal with that?
It's a bit of expectation management. And I think we've instructed our agents to remain polite. And so I think they do run the risk of being a little too encouraging. But then we do provide structured feedback to the candidates along the journey. So I think so they really can get an indication. If the job says you must speak Dutch, you said you don't speak Dutch. Like this is probably not going well. We'll still be friendly about it. Yeah, we'll still say nice things to you, but you failed. One of the three must-have requirements for the job.
Yeah, and I think default friendly is good. I mean, you can imagine in future maybe the candidate might be able to toggle on or off a particular personality of interview. It's like give me the hardest person ever. I can imagine some people go for that. But maybe an extra step we don't know. But default polite, I think it's possible to also.
I love the choose your fighter approach where we could do that with the interview. So again, you could. I'd love to do that. It'd be a lot of fun. It's not what we're doing with our corporate clients, but for our own jobs, I mean, it'd be fun to just make. I mean, if you want somebody who's like if you want like the tough New Yorker or the very direct, Dutch person. So we can instruct the agents to have that tonality.
On a cultural sort of side, that might actually one day be relevant, right? Because we know that different people in different cultures communicate differently, including on feedback and stuff. So maybe we do need to be sensitive to this. Okay, we're gonna keep flying through. Here's one from Ronan again. Okay, great if a role is oversubscribed. Loads of candidates. But what can the agent do if the role's difficult to fill? In other words, there's nobody through there. I guess he's asking whether there's actually a sourcing agent, but I'm not sure that's what we're talking about. There are sourcing agents. We've actually demoed a few over on Brainfood Live. So basically answer, I don't think that's what VONQ's doing right now, but presumably it's buildable because we've seen people do it. Okay, let's keep going through. I'm gonna have to skip through. Sorry, folks. Yes, it can do that. Actually, very quick one. Are there any orgs in India using this? I mean, I think there was an answer that was positive, wasn't it? Because we answered that there was a company that's actually doing this specifically for the Indian market. So yes, Kamai, that's true. Okay. We're gonna have to keep going through. Maybe one more question. Okay. Let's have a look at this. Is it capable of evaluating resume contents with skill mapping? So in other words, resume speaks Java. I think the answer is also yes to this, isn't it? It can basically understand the full context. It's not going to confuse Java, the Java language, Java, the island in Indonesia, which was one of the classic keyword errors, which is a humorous point. So, okay, folks, I think that's about it for questions. We've got a bunch of chat coming in. I think people are saying, yes, I got to go. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Clearly, we should continue this conversation elsewhere. And I'm sure we're going to be messaging people who've registered to this webinar and who've commented on LinkedIn with further details, further information. We'll just actually, Rob, you've done us a favor there. I forgot all about this. Grab your LinkedIn URL, folks, and just drop it in the comment thread wherever you're watching this. If it's on Crowdcast, stick it in the Crowdcast. If it's on any of the LinkedIns, drop it on those LinkedIns. That's going to be one way in which we can kind of pick up as a signal you're interested in further a dialogue with this type of technology. And secondly, it's also an opportunity for you to connect with everyone else who's also interested in this and wants to extend the conversation. So go ahead and do that, folks. Other than that, I think we're coming to the end of this wonderful demo. Final thing I want to sort of maybe address to Ritu here. What else are we expecting from VONQ in the next sort of quarter or so? Wonderful things that are happening already. What is down the pipe that we can expect and stuff that we need to be interested in?
A lot, Hung. We talked quickly about CPA Plus, where there you go. So, we've really built this outcome-based pricing model because we hear from customers constantly, all we care about is the outcome. We don't care the source of where it's coming from. We just want the ROI so we can justify the spend to our CFO, to our finance director. And hence the CPA Plus model. The plus very much stands for the twist where our AI agents come into play. But Bill, I don't know if you want to say something else. Launch is coming very, very soon, so look out for that.
It's our twist on the CPA model. So we've seen that CPA often falls down for publishers, for the job boards, because when they send candidates to an ATS, too many of them drop out. So we have a new and improved candidate journey, so we pick up more of them. And then the plus is when you buy an application through VONQ, you get that dossier as well. So when you get an application, it's not just a one-click apply, but they've had the chat, they've had the interview, there's a scoring and assessment. And so we're selling these in bundles of 20 applications, and we're doing it through select ATSs. So we have some exclusive launch partners. But it'll be in front of, 50,000 hiring companies shortly, very, very soon.
Very, very interesting. Do keep us informed, folks. Wonderful to see some of this progress. Exciting times to be in recruiting. I think we're going to shift the needle on some really persistent historical problems with regards to how job search and recruiting works. And it's just fantastic to see technology providers like VONQ do what they're doing. Okay, let me not bleed any more of your time, folks. There's a CEO and CTO of an important business here talking to me, so we need to get them to do their proper jobs at some point. Okay, let's let them go. Ritu, Mohanka, thank you so much for joining us and spending time and educating us on what the vision of VONQ is going to be. And Bill, thank you so much for the demo. Wonderful to see this happening in kind of real time. I think the folks really enjoyed it. I'm sure we'll do a round 2 of this sometime later in the year where we've got more stuff to show you. So thank you for joining. And everybody here, thank you for watching. Really enjoyed to see you sort of here. If you're interested in more of these like product demo style sort of shows, do let me know. And I'll keep doing them. They seem interesting for me. So if you're interested, let's keep rolling. Other than that, let me wish everyone a very happy Easter. I know a lot of people have taken a long weekend, so hopefully you get a good short week this week and another short week next. We'll be back the week following. The next Brainfood Live is not tomorrow. It is on the 25th of April. It is going to be one of the topics we talked about, how to mitigate against fake job candidates. One, you have to show up to, folks. What are your techniques to dealing with this? If you have technology like VONQ, amazing, but what if you don't? What are the techniques you're using? We've got a bunch of sort of recruiters who've got some really interesting stories to share, some techniques to look out for, but also some techniques to deploy to help securitize your business when you're hiring candidates. Okay, that's it. Great to see everybody. Follow the channel if you're interested in this type of conversation. Other than that, have a good weekend. I will see you next Friday.